Two platforms dominated the 5th generation of video game consoles: Sony's PlayStation and Nintendo's N64. These machines each had their pros and cons, however. They also had one thing in common though: they both boasted great games. And while a lot of N64 games now handle like you're trying to drive a yacht on land with a wheel that's made entirely from Vaseline, the console still has plenty to offer. We've already covered the OG PlayStation's top titles, that's a pretty good video, go watch that one after this. So this time around we're spotlighting the finest cream of the finest crop on the very fine Nintendo 64. The N64 may not have been a massive success for Nintendo, and a lot of the games may feel a little on the archaic side today due to the growing pains of 3D games at the time, but these games are nostalgic joy for a good reason. Whether you're in the market for a platformer, a rail shooter, or something else entirely, this list of the best N64 games of all time has you covered. Do note though that we're trying to limit entries per franchise for the sake of variety, just to stop talking about the same games that every list like this usually talks about, hence why there's only one Zelda game and not as many Mario games as you might expect. Sorry in advance, Majora's Mask and Mario Kart 64. Number 20, Blast Corps. One of several games by Rare to earn a spot on this list, Blast Corps is a puzzle game for people who aren't fans of the genre. It tasks players with clearing a path for an out-of-control nuclear missile carrier using a range of vehicles including bulldozers, trucks, mech suits and more. Players can freely switch between these vehicles, and the fun of the game comes from demolishing buildings and other obstacles at breakneck speed. Admittedly, Blast Corps' controls present a steep learning curve, especially these days, but the title's gloriously rendered 3D carnage rewards those who stick with it. There probably aren't a lot of people clamouring for a new Blast Corps, but we wouldn't be mad if they did. Maybe they could even tie it in with Oppenheimer? Turn it into a kart racer? Hire me, Nintendo/Rare. Number 19, WWF No Mercy. WWF No Mercy combines the excellent mechanics of its predecessor, WWF WrestleMania 2000, with updated gameplay modes to create one of the greatest wrestling games of all time. Not only is the story-driven mode more satisfying this time around, but the creator wrestler customization options are more robust too, and still some of the best that you can get in a wrestling game. No Mercy improves on WrestleMania 2000's 4-way multiplayer experience as well. Players can now choose from a stable of over 60 wrestlers, and matches aren't confined to the main arena area either. Upgrades like this more than compensate for WWF No Mercy's now blocky graphics, and explain why the game still enjoys a strong following more than 2 decades after it first hit shelves. Even the recently released AEW Fight Forever owes a huge debt of gratitude to this game, though only one of them released as a complete game, which, not great. Number 18, Turok 2, Seeds of Evil. Everything Turok Dinosaur Hunter did well, its 1998 sequel, Turok 2 Seeds of Evil, does better. This first-person shooter's graphics and level design are both head and shoulders above what the original game had to offer, plus it includes the multiplayer support sorely lacking from its predecessor. These aren't the only reasons why Turok 2 nabbed a slot in this roundup of the best N64 games of all time though. The game also offers several significant under-the-hood improvements, such as smarter enemy AI that make the gameplay a worthwhile challenge. With the rise of boomer shooters and renaissance for franchises like Doom, fans are eager for the Turok franchise to make a comeback, and Turok 2 makes it easy to see why. We need more kids named Turok, goddammit. Someone's got to bully all the kids called Khaleesi on the playground. Someone's got to do it. Number 17, 1080 Snowboarding. Before everyone had the SSX series, Nintendo had 1080 Snowboarding. A sports game beloved by critics and gamers alike, it garnered praise for its incredible visuals, video game snow was never so varied, realistic physics and pulse-pounding gameplay. 1080 Snowboarding also featured a plethora of different modes, including 3 devoted to racing and 2 focused on performing tricks, as well as unlockable player characters and boards with their own unique qualities. These extras kept 1080 Snowboarding from getting stale, as did the game's well-implemented 2-person multiplayer. We don't get enough snowboarding games these days, but 1080 remains some arcadey fun even today. Number 16, Super Smash Bros. What a weird idea this is, I don't think it'll catch on. Super Smash Bros. Is the first entry in Nintendo's hit crossover fighting game franchise and contains the same core ingredients as its many successors. A lineup of iconic Nintendo characters and associated battle arenas? Check. Simplified controls? Check. Ring out focused victory conditions? Check. The result is a hyper-accessible, not to mention hyper-addictive 2.5D brawler that's still a blast to play today with up to 3 friends, though it is a little lightweight in its roster and overall amount of content, especially in comparison to Ultimate. While later entries in the series would beef up Super Smash Bros.'s admittedly undercooked single-player mode, the game's underlying mechanics remain virtually unchanged today for good reason, apart from when Nintendo added tripping for a bit of a practical joke, I guess. Number 15, Conker's Bad Fur Day. Conker's Bad Fur Day is arguably the most controversial title on this list of the best N64 games of all time. Ostensibly another of the console's many kid-friendly platformers, this 2001 outing is actually aimed squarely at grown-up gamers thanks to its graphic violence, foul language, and generally raunchy vibe. But while this risque content is what initially grabbed players' attention, it was Conker's Bad Fur Day's finely tuned gameplay that kept them on the hook. Combining ingenious linear level design with ultra-responsive controls, Conker's Bad Fur Day delivers a single-player experience so good, its only flaw is that it's over too soon. Your mileage will vary on the quality of the game's multiplayer by comparison, however, both modes look and sound terrific thanks to developer Rare's hardware-pushing efforts. Number 14, Space Station Silicon Valley. While it's easy to fixate on the better-known N64 classics, anyone who overlooks lesser-known gems like Space Station Silicon Valley does so to their own detriment. A wildly inventive platformer, Space Station Silicon Valley casts players as a sentient microchip capable of possessing animals to do its bidding. Like we said, this game is wild. It's also an absolute blast to play. Space Station Silicon Valley's core mechanics are easy to grasp and fun to execute, and its puzzles are challenging without ever being too hard. Best of all, the game packs a sly sense of humour courtesy of British developer DMA Design, something that helps distract from the few shortcomings, looking at you camera system, the game has to offer. DMA would go on to make basically every single Grand Theft Auto game, so they definitely did something right here. Number 13, Paper Mario. Paper Mario is the perfect entry point to the JRPG genre for the uninitiated. Fusing platformer and RPG mechanics together, it offers a winning blend of both that also happens to illustrate the remarkable malleability of the Mario franchise as a whole. You'll solve puzzles, gain partners, and face down bad guys in turn-based battles throughout the game's charming version of Mushroom Kingdom. Sure, hardcore RPG gamers will no doubt balk at Paper Mario's relatively low difficulty level, a side effect of its accessibility-oriented design. But for everyone else, the game's striking 2D meets 3D graphics, colourful characters, and varied quests will prove suitably enchanting. It's no wonder Paper Mario spawned a broadly beloved, if a slightly spotty, franchise. Good luck affording this one physically though, it's definitely more expensive than a few reams of paper on eBay. Number 12, Wave Race 64. There are several racing titles up for consideration when it comes to the best N64 games, yet none of them come close to stepping on Wave Race 64's challenge to reward ratio, apart from one game we'll get to later. This jet ski sports game isn't easy to master, but those willing to devote time to conquering its realistic water-based physics benefit from an uncommonly deep racing experience in return. Wave Race 64 also happens to be one of the prettiest games on the N64, which certainly makes all those hours of practice a heck of a lot less painful. The rolling waves and sparkling shores of each of the game's 8 courses are very pleasing on the eye, so much so that it's a shame Nintendo didn't include more of them, or more of Wave Race ever since the GameCube. Number 11, Sin and Punishment. Nintendo didn't release Sin and Punishment outside Japan during the N64's lifespan, so most gamers in the West didn't get to play Treasure's rail shooter until it hit the Wii Virtual Console. The game proved more than worth the wait though, thanks to its lightning quick, arcade-inspired gameplay and sleek graphics. Sin and Punishment's novel control scheme, originally designed to capitalise on the N64's infamous controller layout, has aged surprisingly well too. Indeed, the only real criticism levelled against the game is its relatively short length. even accounting for the additional bosses included with harder difficulty settings. But then again, isn't that just an excuse to play it through all over again? It's not a sin after all, eh? Number 10, Star Wars Rogue Squadron. Star Wars Rogue Squadron isn't just one of the best ever N64 games, it's one of the best Star Wars games of all time too. Eschewing the pseudo-realism of LucasArts' earlier Star Wars X-Wing series, Rogue Squadron is an arcade-style flight game that perfectly captures the blockbuster intensity of the saga's pitched space battles. This doesn't mean LucasArts and co-developer Factor 5 have totally dumbed things down though. Rogue Squadron's flying mechanics are impressively deep, allowing players to pitch, roll and bank in all 5 of the game's starships. The visuals are as well polished as the gameplay too, although you'll need an expansion pack to see them at their very, very best. Number 9, Goldeneye 007. No list of the best N64 games of all time worth its salt would omit Goldeneye 007. Rare's 1997 first-person shooter is something of a miracle, not just a high-quality licensed game, but one that changed the industry forever. Without Goldeneye, the console shooter as we know it might not exist, plain and simple. Of course, we'll be the first to admit that the game hasn't aged quite as well as its perennially middle-aged super spy protagonist, James Bond. GoldenEye's graphics are often crude even compared to other titles on the console, and the less said about its controls, the better. Even so, the game's multiplayer deathmatches remain a true and wonderful delight even now. Unless someone chooses Oddjob, that is, in which case they're a cheater and loser and can go suck a big egg. Number 8, Pokemon Stadium 2. Pokemon Stadium 2 is the ideal game for players who prefer the Pokemon franchise's tactical battles over its other RPG elements. You don't spend any time exploring a virtual world or interacting with NPCs in Pokemon Stadium 2. Instead, your sole goal is winning tournament trophies by defeating your rivals as Pokemon in beautifully rendered 3D contests. Like its predecessor, Pokemon Stadium 2 also allows players to import Pokemon from their Game Boy, a novel feature even now. However, unlike that game, Pokemon Stadium 2 also comes stocked with all 251 Pokemon available at the time. How many are there now though? You don't know. Nobody knows. You may think you do, but you don't. And given the franchise's gotta catch 'em all mantra, this detail is enough to give Pokemon Stadium 2 the edge over the original game. Maybe start saving up for a box version of this though. It costs almost as much to buy it in dollars as there are the amount of Pokemon. Gotta bankrupt them all. Number 7, Banjo-Kazooie. Yet another rare outing, Banjo-Kazooie is one of the finest platformers of its generation and of all time. A lot of this is down to Banjo-Kazooie's phenomenal level design, which encourages exploration via its joint protagonists' ever-expanding arsenal of abilities. As a result, there's a ton for players to see and do in the game's 9 3D worlds, including solving puzzles, bopping enemies, and unearthing secret codes. It doesn't hurt that these worlds all look terrific as well. Rare devised new technology to make richer, more textured graphics possible without sacrificing the draw distance or frame rate. The developer didn't skimp on the game's animations either, and you'll be more than happy killing several hours with Banjo-Kazooie's crazy cast of characters. While it's a shame that Banjo-Kazooie Fast and Furiously didn't do too well, we still of course love a sequel. It's been way too long. Number 6, Perfect Dark. Perfect Dark takes everything great about its spiritual successor, Goldeneye, and dials it up to 11. The non-linear levels are more varied, the enemy AI more challenging, and the multiplayer mode more customizable. So whether you're playing alone or with up to 3 friends, Perfect Dark isn't a game you'll grow tired of quickly. This first-person shooter also pushes the console's hardware further than any other entry on this list of the best N64 games of all time. The detailed graphics and audio are both markedly better than GoldenEye's, and it even features 45 minutes of fully voiced cutscenes, which is pretty crazy for the time. Indeed, Perfect Dark's only real weakness is its ambition. Even with the near-mandatory expansion pack plugged in, the N64's hardware still struggles to keep up with it at times. We're also struggling to keep up with what the deal is with the new Xbox reboot of Perfect Dark. Seriously, what's going on over there? Number 5, F-Zero X. F-Zero X is all the proof you could ever need that graphics will never truly trump great gameplay. The game isn't quite the prettiest racing title on the N64, as its futuristic vehicles and tracks look like the developers had to pay by the polygon, yet it's easily one of the most entertaining. What's more, F-Zero X's specific visuals serve a purpose, keeping the game's 30 competitor strong, blisteringly fast races ticking along at a pretty impressive 60 frames per second. Sure, the precision required with the controls takes some getting used to, however, once you've cleared that hurdle, F-Zero X's wealth of varied vehicles and circuits will keep you busy for a long time. It's truly wild how few entries in the series we've had since this one on the Nintendo 64 so long ago. Let's fix that, guys, come on. Number 4, Star Fox 64. Many rail shooters offer little in the way of replay value, but Star Fox 64 isn't most rail shooters. This 1997 title overcomes the limitations of the genre by introducing branching pathways into the mix. On any given mission, players can guide Fox McCloud or one of his anthropomorphized space mercenary allies along different routes, provided they meet certain conditions, that is. Playing through each of Star Fox 64's paths is especially enjoyable thanks to its top-notch presentation. The environments are detailed and diverse, while the quantity and clarity of the voice acting clips are unbelievable for a cartridge-based game. Star Fox 64 also supports multiplayer, allowing you to test your mettle against 3 of your friends across a trio of modes. It was so good that Nintendo basically remade it 9 times, each one a little less good than the last, until they basically gave up on the IP entirely. What the fucks, guys? What the fucks? Star Fox. Number 3, Diddy Kong Racing. Yeah, that's right, it's better than Mario Kart. This slot on our list of the best N64 games of all time could easily have gone to Mario Kart 64, yet Diddy Kong Racing's sheer replay value allowed it to pip that beloved kart racer to the post. Unlike Mario Kart 64, Diddy Kong Racing includes additional objectives for players to accomplish aside from simply beating each track. The game also includes a story-driven adventure mode, something else absent from Mario Kart 64. Diddy Kong Racing's superior graphics also help it streak past Mario Kart. The distance fog and pop-in are both less pronounced here than on any other early N64 releases, and without the frame rate or polygon count taking a noticeable hit either. However, most important of all, the circuits in Diddy Kong Racing are better designed than those of Mario Kart 64, which clinches its status as the N64's best family-friendly racing game. Number 2, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time represents the Legend of Zelda franchise's first foray into 3D gameplay, and Nintendo more than stuck the landing. Everything that fans loved about the action-adventure game's 2D predecessors, namely dungeon crawling, puzzle solving and exploration, are present and accounted for here, along with innovations such as target locking and context-sensitive controls. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time also continued the series' tradition of offering tremendous value for money. Its huge environments and abundance of main and side quests are enough to keep most, but not all, players going for weeks or even sometimes months. And once they're done, the direct sequel Majora's Mask is ready and waiting for them to boot up next, and is almost, if not just as good. Just hope you don't have megalophobia or a crippling anxiety when it comes to time. Number 1, Super Mario 64. One of the greatest launch titles of all time, Super Mario 64 is also easily one of the most influential games ever made too. Indeed, the impact of this 3D platformer's innovations, including its player-controlled camera system, analog control scheme, and open-world-ish level design, can still be felt across games of all genres today. Heck, even the GTA series is indebted to Super Mario 64. Mario got his GAT confirmed? True, certain aspects of the game feel a bit dated today. Blurry, comparatively basic textures mar Super Mario 64's vibrant virtual sandbox, and the actual implementation of the title's camera system leaves a lot to be desired for those used to more modern controls. That said, these shortcomings are easy to overlook thanks to the sense of wonder coursing through the Nintendo mascot's first 3D outing even now, more than 25 years on. And also the fact that no new Mario games let you yeet small penguins off of cliffs to their doom. Check. Mate. Hello, this is Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of the N64, be sure to let us know down below if you want a new F-Zero game, and I'll definitely not make it. Once again, this has been Shigsy, and this has been Culture Vultures. Thank you for watching.